up, a tribal college president puts students first, a look at the economy in Southeast Alaska from an Indigenous lens, and an Arizona tribe has reached a deal to conserve water from the Colorado River. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Hopa. Thank you for joining us. We start today on the north slope of Alaska, where environmentalists have lost their first legal battle over the Willow Project. A U.S. District Court judge says the company ConocoPhillips can move forward, including by constructing a road. After the oil and gas project was approved by the Biden administration in March, lawsuits started popping up against the effort, including one from the Alaska Native organization Sovereign Inupiat for a Living Arctic. In this lawsuit, environmentalists argued the noise from the construction could affect caribou. The judge said her decision came after considering points of view from an Alaska Native Village Corporation, a regional corporation, and the North Slope Bureau. She added that the groups opposed to Willow did not prove in court that construction would cause irreparable harm. Officials from ConocoPhillips responded favorably to the ruling. In court documents, a company executive acknowledged an order blocking construction would make it impossible to meet its September 2029 deadline. The Willow Project would develop some of the most pristine areas in the country. ConocoPhillips says the $8 billion project would create up to 2,500 jobs during construction and 300 long-term jobs. Grief is something everyone goes through. The Shoshone-Bannock Behavioral Health Program in Fort Hall, Idaho, is working toward healing their community at the 20th Annual Grief Conference. Rosalind Yazzie has the story.
Healing with our wolf spirit. That's the theme of the 2023 Grief Conference in Fort Hall, Idaho. It reflects the animal's strength, adaptability, as well as the importance of family and community. Behavioral health manager Jason Butler shared a memorial song. He hoped it would remind community members to know they're not alone.
It's part of our tradition that we're naturally a helping people, and the way that our people lived in the past, we all had roles and we all had things that we had to do, and we helped each other. Nobody ever went without. When people needed help, they got it.
Loss and addiction were topics addressed. A panel on traditional grief practices and a tribute to those who died last year helped heal the attendees. Annie Bacon, a behavioral health technician, led an activity on making grief rocks to honor loved ones. She's suggested placing them on graves or in a significant area. She painted one for her late son.
And we just wanted to give people some tools to help them heal.
This event educates the community while providing comfort to the people who need it most. In Fort Hall, Idaho, Rosalind Yazzie, ICT News.
Well, one tribal nation is ready to showcase its newest project in the heart of Southern California. Last week, the Agua Caliente tribe of Cahuilla Indians opened its new state-of-the-art spa. Shown here in an artist rendering, the spa is part of a new cultural plaza that also includes a theater and museum. This site is located on the grounds of the original mineral pool the nation began using thousands of years ago. Chairman Reed Milanovich said the hot spring continues continues to be a cultural resource for the nation, just as it was for his ancestors. The complex features 22 private mineral baths, 15 treatment rooms, and a cryotherapy chamber. Next to open later this year is the nation's cultural museum, gathering plaza, and oasis trail. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Michael Oltrogge leads Nebraska Indian Community College as its president. He has been recognized as Honoree of the Year, which is an award given by the American Indian College Fund. President Oltrogge has been described by his colleagues as someone who focuses his heart on the well-being of his students, and he's our guest today. Hi there, and congratulations to you.
Thank you very much for having me on today. It's very nice to be here.
You've been associated with the college since 1995 when you were actually a student there. For our viewers learning about your college for the first time, tell us about it.
Sure. NICC started in about 1973. We were started with the land-based tribes in Nebraska. There were three land-based tribes at that point, and they all came together and started the Nebraska Indian Community College.
What has been your personal journey and experience working there over the decades?
One of the things I've noticed is there's never been a dull day. Everything has been just superb. The college has been, just developed and being built every single day. We've been accredited since 1986, and we are very, very hopeful to announce our first baccalaureate program yet this year. So, we offer associate degrees and certificate programs. Currently, we do a lot of digital education as well. Even our in-person or our traditional classroom settings allow students to be able to zoom into the course if they can't make it in person, which helps to alleviate a lot of the, either childcare issues, transportation issues, or work conflicts. So it's been just a fantastic journey so far.
The college actually has 4 locations. How does that help you reach more Native students?
Just being able to have, the 4 different locations. We have a location on the Santee Reservation in Nebraska, one on the Omaha Reservation in Nebraska, one in South Sioux City in Nebraska, and we currently have an additional location in Pawnee, Oklahoma. So the 3 reservation-based campuses certainly allow for more access and opportunity directly. So if a student wants to come in, they have that opportunity. The Sioux City site allows us to offer some additional educational opportunities to some urban people, just to help them along as well. And then the online and the video meetings and things have been fantastic as well, just to open up access to people.
Tell us about that location in Pawnee, Oklahoma. How did that come to be?
Actually, we just kind of, another area that we kind of fell into. I actually went down to a hunting trip to help work with some wild hogs. And I visited the little college. Pawnee Nation College is not an accredited institution, but they hope to become an accredited institution. They were having some troubles with their accreditation partner at the time. So NICC just stepped in, and we offered any services that we could at the time. And it's been a nice and natural fit. The Pawnee people were once a part of Nebraska before their relocation to Oklahoma. And so it all works out fairly well, and just with the partnership. Right now, we have 7 students graduating from Pawnee Nation this year. And we're very excited. We have over 33 students who are graduating college-wide this year.
Graduation season is upon us, as we know that. Tell us about some of the major degrees or certificates that your students are graduating with.
Yep. Our biggest degree always been in either transferring or in business. And that's why we're focusing our first 4-year program in a business type of area. Basically, it's business and tribal nation building. So we are very hopeful that we'll be able to get that approved through the Higher Learning Commission. And otherwise, our Associate of Arts in Business Administration and our Associate of Arts and Journal of Arts and our Social Science and General Science Studies, which are our main transfer types of programs, have always been good.
I'm really curious, you mentioned that a few of your classes are online. How has technology changed the way that your institution does education, given, all the decades that you've been there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the technology has been at the forefront of NICC for a long time. One of my first jobs, I became the president in 2004. So one of my first jobs is kind of to upset the faculty members. We instituted basically a closed system television circuit between the 3 locations at the time. That way we could teach English Comp 1 at one location, and then we would have the instructor move around to the different locations. So then that way the students actually get the hands-on experience. So when we transitioned through COVID, we had some foresight to make sure that we were hooking up with the K through 12 schools as well to create our own tribal broadband educational wireless systems. So that way the K through 14 students within the boundaries of the Omaha Reservation and the Santee Reservation have access to free internet access.
I have one last question for you for, the junior or the senior Native student in high school. What is your sales pitch to them to consider going to a tribal college or university? I think so often we see, the big flashy universities, but there's so much value in TCUs. What would you say to them?
Well, just one quick sales pitch would be that we are the best value in education. Almost all of the tribal colleges, NICC included, pride ourselves a lot on being able to get students through without having bills, without having student loans when they graduate. NICC has been doing a really good job with that for the past 8-9 years. So none of our students who graduate, have any kind of a bill when they transfer on. Another piece is that you can stay home, you can learn about your culture, you can learn about your languages, you can learn about your histories and traditions, you can actively participate. At tribal colleges, we also try to make sure that you have the opportunity to work, to be able to support your family at the same time. And we try to make almost every activity some kind of a family motivated activity integrated within tribal values.
Well, President Michael Oltrogge, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.
Southeast Alaska is a special place in the world for Marina Anderson. Through her work at Sustainable Southeast Partnership, she's forging new partnerships to strengthen the region's economy and cultural values. Our Shirley Sneve interviewed her at the Reservation Economic Summit in Las Vegas.
Well, here we are at the Res Conference, and joining me is Marina Anderson, and I actually have known you on the screen for many years. You were part of a documentary that I was part of in Vision Maker Media in 2012 called Growing Native. And so I'm very familiar with your face. And so when I saw you last night, I go, oh my gosh, I know you. So thank you for agreeing to be interviewed, and we'll talk about some of those things today.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about the characteristics of Southeast Alaska. What's the economy like? What are the tribal affiliations of people that live in that region? Just describe what Southeast Alaska is like for someone like me from Nebraska.
Yeah, it's quite the contrast to Nebraska. Southeast Alaska is it's an archipelago, so it's a bunch of islands that are all lined up together, and it's like a big family of islands. And that's what Southeast Alaska really feels like, is one big family. As far as the economy goes, the timber industry was part of the leading economy. There was fishing and timber and tourism. Timber has fallen off the map and is no longer one of the drivers in the economy. What we have now is a chance for us to kind of recreate this economy and reshape this economy so that we have a localized economy with businesses that are owned by local business owners. We're able to build our workforce locally and offer pathways to professionalism locally. And a lot of that came down with the the Southeast Alaska Sustainability Strategy, which is through the Department of Agriculture. And that was a $25 million investment into Southeast Alaska. And we were able to work with the different communities and organizations to deploy this money out, and they create their projects around a community need. And so some of the communities are working on rebuilding smokehouses that were burned down. Some of the communities are working on habitat restoration and restoring salmon streams, and working on different prescriptions for timber, harvested timber areas for their thinning. So it's really exciting because we're in this moment in Southeast Alaska where we had an extractive industry that took over our economy for a very long time. And a lot of the money left Southeast Alaska during that time. A lot of workers were imported and the money moved out of the area. And when the timber industry crashed, a lot of the people left as well, and we were pretty devastated. Now we're able to really strengthen ourselves and build ourselves, in my opinion, for the first time.
Really taking a look at the definition of sovereignty. We've been doing that at this conference. What would your definition of sovereignty be?
Wow, that is a big question, and we talk about sovereignty so often. My definition of sovereignty would be being able to take charge of oneself, and that might be in a tribe taking charge of themselves, or even in Southeast Alaska as a region being a sovereign region, and being able to not just sustain ourselves, but have a regenerative economy, a regenerative ecosystem, and a place that helps take care of you so that you can truly rely on yourself in that place.
One of the things that always struck me about Alaska, and every time I was able to visit there, is that the economy is really different. I mean, you really have to look at harvesting your own food, because importing food is a little silly and a little expensive. So talk about that, and that's why we interviewed you with Growing Native, was because your family really believes in that philosophy. So if you could talk a little bit about that, and in 2012, our Growing Native experience.
Yeah, the economy in Alaska, and I could speak mostly to Southeast Alaska because that's my region, but our economy is still very intertwined with our traditional economy. So the people of the land are the Tlingit, the Haida, and the Tsimshian people, and we've traditionally traded, and we still do a lot of trading, and with that comes a lot of harvesting and a lot of creating beautiful artwork and different items. I would say that to be able to have a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle in Alaska and in Southeast Alaska, and to be able to afford that, most people do have to rely on the resources that are around and be able to live with the land and live with the water as well. My family has always been a very big harvesting family and has helped take care of a lot of community members. I have recognized that with colonization, different people have held on to different pieces of knowledge. I have an uncle that's a carver, I have an aunt that was the first person in my family to dance again. My dad was the person that held on to a lot of harvesting knowledge in his generation. And so when I was growing up, we would harvest for a lot of families, especially single mothers or people that recently moved in, or if somebody lost a job, or when the timber industry fell and people were hungry, we were able to share out a lot. And we have what we call a 60-20-20 rule, where we immediately distribute 60% of the food that we harvest. And then we put away 20% for our family, which is a large family because it's a Native family. And then we reserve another 20% for later in the year when we hear about people that need food, or if there's a funeral or something like that. And then a lot of the food food and medicine and different things that are in my family's 20% also gets traded out. So I'll trade to, I have friends that live up north and they harvest whale, so they have muktuk, and I'll trade them herring eggs when I go home for muktuk. And it's a really great trade because we're never down trading. We're always trying to up trade and make sure that everybody is really taken care of. Because when you express your wealth in that way, it's not a way of making yourself look good. It's a way of ensuring you that you can come back to me and I'll be able to keep taking care of you in that way, which is, to me, beautiful.
Wow, great stories, Marina. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
The Colorado River Basin is in the middle of what experts call a megadrought. It is the region's worst in about 1,200 years. That has prompted several states in the West to negotiate how to allocate water. Just last week, the federal government said it reached a deal with state, local, and tribal governments in Arizona. The agreement means the Gila River Indian Community will save 125,000 acre-feet of water from the Colorado River every year for the next 3 years. The tribe will be paid $50 million annually for that, and it is expected to boost Lake Mead's water levels by nearly 2 feet. ICT regular contributor John Tahsuda has been following these developments and joins us now virtually. Hi, John.
Hi, good to be with you again.
So first off, this deal that was reached by the Gila River Indian Community, is that good or bad news in your opinion?
Well, I think it's good news for everybody, but I would actually call it smart. I think the tribe for years has been very smart and strategic as they have used their water resources to develop for themselves, but also to develop their relationships with the surrounding communities. And they've really led the way. If you notice, part of the story in this is that the tribe led the way last year by voluntarily leaving some of its water behind. Other folks didn't do it. And so with pressure from the tribe, now we see the city of Phoenix, the city of Tucson, other folks are now wanting to play ball and keep water in the river.
Does this mean that the tribe is giving up its water, and how does that affect how it operates on a daily basis?
Well, the tribe is not giving up its water; it's selling it. Be clear about that. In that sense, the water is like a commodity, and one of the interesting pieces, and again, I think the tribe was very far-sighted when they entered into their water settlement in 2004. They really integrated and took some criticism for it. Integrated themselves with the state's water delivery system, but in many ways, there was no other way for them to do it. So much of the water that they own is now being essentially replaced with Colorado River water. And so you have to get a way to move that water down to them. And the only way to do that was to be more integrated into the state water delivery system. Arizona is an arid state, which doesn't mean that there's no water. It just means the water is in places that can be hard to get to and not allocated well around the state. So they have this big system that's been there for 100 years now, moving water around the state. And so the tribe is really smart, I think, in integrating themselves into that. It also makes it easy for them to do things like this, to say, well, you know what, we'll sell the water. That water is easily now transported to other uses or left in the river as they're planning to do.
We know that tribal nations want to allocate water just like state and local governments. Actually, the negotiations over the Colorado River Basin has been described as water wars. How much do you think that tribal nations pool in these negotiations with state, local, and the feds?
Well, again, I point to Gila River as sort of being the lead with the strategy on this. Integrating themselves into the system. One, it's a necessity for them to be able to get their water at this point in time. It's a necessity. But also that means they have integrated themselves into not just the water system and the physical delivery of water, but into the politics and the relationships that are so important with this. Water wars is an apt description. It's a scarce resource, getting scarcer every year at this point. And so the tribe makes itself a prime player in this, and not to get a little technical, but there are legal reasons for this. In the West, the water system, the legal system is based on called prior appropriation, which means whoever got to the water first gets to use it as much as they can use, generally speaking. But the tribes are at the highest priority, so they have the first in time right. So when Gila River is taking its water and leaving it in the river or selling it to other folks, that means that the state or the feds, anybody else that's buying that water, doesn't have to wait down the line like they do with other prior appropriators. They're able to get the water directly from the tribe when they need it, which enables them to do some top-down planning for the state and for the whole region.
John, you're calling this agreement from Gila River smart. Should other tribal nations be paying attention to this deal and maybe emulate it in their own communities?
Well, yes. But obviously, every tribe, and particularly in different parts of the country, have different needs. The situation can be different. But in this part of the country, certainly the way that Gila River has positioned itself, again, politically, as well as economically into that picture, made itself a necessary part of that, really strengthens their hand. It's also smart in a planning sense. So when the tribe is securing its water rights, it probably, and in this case did not, have sufficient infrastructure to get all of the water that they own to themselves for their own use. Building out that infrastructure takes time, takes money, and for most tribes, that's the situation. The water that they own is actually held and has been used by other people for years. Getting it to themselves takes time. And so while that is going on, while the infrastructure is being built, the tribe is selling its water, continuing to make money off of it, because water is not a commodity that sits there. It continually flows. So you have to use it or lose it. And in this case, the tribe is very smartly continuing to use the water in an economic sense. At the same time, it's building out its infrastructure, and very smartly, never letting a good issue go to waste or be wasted by time. The tribe has also used this crisis to say we need more assistance from the federal government to get our infrastructure built faster, which ultimately helps everybody. And so again, this tribe has been super smart, I think, about how they have gone about the whole way they've dealt with the issue.
Well, ICT regular contributor John Tahsuda, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.